Welcome to Get a Word In, a podcast about content marketing. I'm your host, Adam Walker. I'm passionate about sharing stories and knowledge through content, especially in the form of podcasting. In fact, I co-founded Edgewise.media, a podcast-first marketing content agency. On this show, I interview content marketers at some of the top companies in the world and discover what's working for them, what isn't, and most importantly, what's next. So stay tuned and get ready for some great content about content marketing. Joining me on the show today is Lawrence McGlown. Lawrence, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm excited about this. Let's start with you, man. Give us the flyover. Who are you? What are you about? What do your days look like? What's your, all the stuff. What's your role? All the things.
Yeah. So business executive, global revenue management. I lead everything from marketing to demand gen to sales enablement, sales, business development, customer success. End to end on the revenue funnel. So as we talk about, social media and how you use channels, it's a very important part of that revenue funnel. And happy to join you and share my thoughts.
Oh man, this is gonna be great. And listen, for those of you that are listening and aren't watching the video, Lawrence has some killer glasses. I just gotta tell you, man, those things are fire. I don't think I've ever seen glasses with quite that unique a shape and style.
Right.
Love them, man. That's
Thanks,
a good thing.
man. I appreciate it.
So first off, related to content marketing, what is not working right now?
All right. So what's not working is what we're all doing, right? We're putting out educational content with a very selfish intent of buy me. So think back, right? As you think about the role of, manufacturers and service providers as producers, right? Prior to the web, they were the most trusted resource, right? And the channels were limited. And that's why when you look back in history, you see pictures and people laugh kid taking a picture leaning on a giant kid eyes, pack of cigarettes, stuff like that, right? Doctors recommend, right? You can go back in time and you can see just how trusting the general consumer public was because they didn't have any way to fact check, right? But as the web has matured and, the amount of information that's shared on it and the notion of producer has changed, it's no longer just a company, right? Everyone's a producer. And so information and the buyer's ability to pick and choose which information he or she uses to get them to a level of trust where they say, you know what, I'm gonna move from awareness to consideration, it's totally different. So if a company is still driving, tried and true, here's my white paper or here's my ebook, and it's all about me, even though it's educational, they're not gonna see the types of conversion rates that make the sales team happy.
So what is the key? Is the key education that's not selfish? Is that just give away the house essentially and then let the cards fall where they may?
Yes, but there's a little bit of a difference. It comes down to the voice. No one is really interested in the voice of the company.
Okay. I see. I think I see where you're going. So then let me selfishly ask a question. How about that? So for the sake of example, so you said ebook. So I have been working on a book for a little while about how businesses can start a podcast, why they should, why they might consider it, what reasons they would use it for, how they would do it, all the tools they would need. The book is very low on the self-promotion scale, almost non-existent. It's really just about hey, here's a resource from all of the stuff I've learned over the last, however many years of doing this. So would that be an example of good educational content or bad educational content in this scenario?
It's about putting it at the right place in the funnel.
Okay.
Right? So if you're leading with that ebook, you're probably going to miss on some buyers who may have been interested, right? Because your ebook is still promoting that which you do. People at this stage of the game are interested in what people have experienced. And the only person who can tell that story is your customer.
Interesting. Okay. So maybe like dig deeper into the customer experience and create content off of that, essentially.
Let's talk about the revenue funnel, because that's what anchors all of this. We're not just pushing content out there for the sake of content. Otherwise, So revenue funnel: awareness, consideration, decision, use, advocacy, and then you got to close that loop. So if you use advocacy to drive awareness, you're coming with a level of transparency, so long as you're not manipulating the advocacy. And we should talk about that. But you're reaching people where they really want to start. I really don't want to start with the voice of the company who's painting this perfect picture of how, rosé it's going to be if I do what you tell me. I really want to understand folks who've made the decision to go with you versus the alternatives. What was their experience? What did they take away? What did they gain? And what was their situation? Because if their situation is not like mine, then this is not relevant. So we're really getting to this one-to-one dialogue and discussion where companies have to do two things. They have to be genuinely transparent and willing to be vulnerable with their true story.
Gotcha. Wow. I love that, man. This is great. I'm learning a lot. That's why I do this podcast. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So then what is working?
Right.
Maybe we already touched on that a little bit. Let's dive a little deeper. What's working in content marketing right now?
So it's the shift where you're leading with the voice of your customer and you're organizing that voice for the many types of buyers that are out there, right? Their minds don't work the same, right? You have data hounds, right? They want to go deep on give me all the data around this, right? You've got relationship builders. They want to know, hey, how is this going to affect me and the people that I interact and engage with? You've got folks who are worried about, risk maintenance and mitigation. Like, is this something we want to do? Who else is doing this? Are they like us? What happens if it doesn't work, right? So you've got all these different types of ways that people shop and the filters they use to weed out and get to that short list. So how do you structure your advocacy part of your revenue funnel to produce that content that will be relevant to the many types of buyers out there? You have to adjust the way you manage the experience, the way you manage your leads, the way you manage your qualification process, so that you can create a continuous loop where it's like, look, we got 9 types of buyers. So we got 9 funnels of content that we're producing by really driving our customer success process to pump out those experience stories using the voice of the customer. And sometimes those experience stories are not flattering.
Interesting. Okay, so then would that start in your mind, I assume, with something like pretty basic, like user profiles or?
Yeah, persona, user profile. I like to say buyer behavior style because it really anchors us on what are we talking about, who are we talking to, and why. Like we're trying to make that next sale. If we don't make the next sale, things are not going to be good. So let's really anchor ourselves around the way people buy, and let's be mindful of that throughout the funnel that we're managing these folks as they go through the experience.
Okay, I love that. I've never heard it put that way, buyer behavior style as opposed to personas or users or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it just makes it, you get out of this, okay, are we in the marketing world? Are we in the sales world? Look, we're all in this game. We all have the goal to get people to buy more of what we do. And everyone has a perspective and a unique way of thinking about how to make that experience as robust as possible. We want best of breed thinking, right? So if everybody can contribute to that, I think the effectiveness of the funnel it's amplified, it's boosted.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. That's great. All right. So let's talk about channels for a minute. What channels are you seeing success on? What channels are growing? Maybe which ones are you not focusing on right now?
So because we're trying to anchor the start of, awareness with the voice of the customer, a voice is best translated in this format that we're using right now. Audible, and if you can have visual and audio together, that's the money shot, right? Because unless it's a paid actor and people can sniff that out, your trust on hearing, like right now, people hearing what I'm saying. I'm not looking down at notes or anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do my best newscaster, look at this camera and not look at you, right?
You got a good newscaster voice. I think you could do this. Yeah.
I'm trying, right? But I'm genuinely sharing what I believe. And when you get your advocacy strategy buttoned up, that's going to happen. Those customers are going to share what they believe about the experience that you promote and deliver. And that's the truth. That's what I mean about being vulnerable. I was talking to a client yesterday and I said, all of your reviews that you're sharing are like 5 stars. And do you really think customers believe your business is that perfect? So you haven't arrived at that place of genuine transparency where you're willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, and the response was, well, wait a minute, why are we going to promote unfavorable reviews or experiences from customers? And my question back was, are you listening to those experiences and are you making adjustments? He's like, oh yeah, we got 1 million initiatives. Boom. There's your money shot again. Now folks know, hey, here's a company that's willing to acknowledge that they're on a journey. And if they fumble, they have a process for listening and fast adapting. Cool. I trust you more than the other 2 options who are like, perfect story, right?
Well, I mean, and there's studies out there that I think show like Amazon reviews that are all 5 stars typically make people wary because they assume that they're fake. So I forget what I think maybe the ideal was like 4.1 or 4.2 stars, something like that. Because that's a reasonable high rating that factors in bad experience because everybody's going to have some kind of bad experience at some point, and you have to factor that in. So yeah, I love that. So, all right, so podcast channels are working really well. Podcasts with video channels. There's a lot of authenticity. There's no script. Any other channels that you're focusing on right now?
I love any channel that allows us to share that story. So, depending on the business and its nature, LinkedIn gives you an opportunity. The Gram gives you an opportunity. Don't sleep on the old school Facebook. It gives you the opportunity. If you're hitting a younger demo, then, you want to hang out in TikTok land. And, there's just, again, people don't want to read, or even when they do, finding the time is tough. I mean, I love to grab a book, like hardcover book, and sit down. And I mean, this is actually my space where I do that, right? But that's me. If a person doesn't read and you've got all this content that they have to read in order to get to the next step in the buying process, you've just extended your sales cycle. Whereas if they can just, listen to a 3-minute, piece or a 60-second piece with a link to go deeper if they want to, it's the ET, Reese's Pieces breadcrumb type deal. That's what we're doing here. And so being mindful that the mind is short, attention span is short, room is it's crowded, and you're just trying to get a slice. You're just trying to get a little slice of their next step. And if you can get people to take that next step, now that ebook that you're working on becomes a lot more relevant because I've gotten past that trust, gate that I'm not there. And now I want to go deeper. Now, hey, give me more. Ooh, you got this ebook. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to cozy up with that ebook and really figure out how to make this happen. And thank you for providing that information. You get the association with that, education, but you've earned it because I know that there are other customers who've already done what I'm thinking about doing.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I love that. And I love what you said about reading too. Like I'm a big reader, and yet I will not read all that much. I'm not reading a bunch of blogs. I read a bunch of books. And so for me, if I want to consume content from a company, it's almost always going to be video, podcast, or very bulleted, like very scanning sort of reading. Nothing deep. So,
yeah, because it's like, hey, what's next?
I got stuff to do. I got stuff going on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to have ChatGPT summarize that for me if it's too long, man. It's too much. It's too much. So, all right. So, last question: if you had to focus on one thing for content marketing for say the next, 6 months, what one thing would you focus on?
I would go really deep on my understanding of buyer behavior styles and my ability to create playbooks for my sales folks that makes it easy for them to fast adapt to a lead that is different from the other lead, right? You know, if you're applying the same techniques to every lead, you're probably not closing as many deals as you probably could and should. But if you have the resources that help you fast adapt, and you know the content that they've digested and the stories that they've heard, now you know what the expectations are, your ability to investigate what their motivations are. Again, it comes across more genuine. I don't feel like I'm being sold. I feel like this person is really taking a genuine interest in helping me make the most informed decision possible. So my focus is on really always going deeper on the buyer behavior styles, and then looking at what we are putting out there to drive awareness and saying, to what degree could we strengthen and make it easier for people to say, you know what? I know what I need to know to move to consideration. And we're on that short list, right? Now we're rocking and rolling, and everything else just flows from there.
That's great. That's great. I love that. I love that. Well, Lawrence, if you don't mind, let me recap our conversation. I will tell you, like, I might have gotten a little lost just listening to you during the first answer. So we'll see how many notes I have here, but I'm going to recap and then I'll ask if you have any final thoughts here. So we started with related to content marketing, what's not working, and your response is what we're all doing is not working. Specifically, educational content with the selfish intent of buy me. And you said companies need to be transparent and tell their story. And particularly, we need to tell the story of our clients that have had success that other potential clients might be able to identify with. We have to tell those in an authentic and very transparent way in particular. So I love that concept. I've never really thought of that before. For what's working, you said, understand your type of customer. Are they data hounds? Are they relationship builders? And you gave a whole bunch of different other types that I didn't get to, but that's the premise. Customize content and experience to each of those buyer types and start with buyer behavior style, not just a persona, not just a user type, but go a little bit deeper to try to understand some of the intent behind that behavior style. For content channels that you're seeing that are effective, you mentioned podcasts, but specifically because people can hear a person's voice, ideally they can see a person and see the authenticity there. We're not reading a script, we're talking from the heart, and that really connects with people. You mentioned the other channels that are probably important as well, depending on your business, but I think audio and visual are key, and I could not agree more. And for focus, you double down on buyer behavior styles because that's where it's at, and it allows you to customize and adapt and help your sales folks customize and adapt their playbooks to the different styles of people to meet their needs more effectively and ideally make more sales more effectively. So did I miss anything? And do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
The only thing you left out was the willingness to be vulnerable and share those stories that are not painting a favorable picture of your business, right? You got to, we want to provide a complete story, not just the ideal story. And that's what builds trust to the highest levels.
That's perfect. Well, Lawrence, man, this is great. I love your take on this. I'm going to definitely have you back on the show. We're going to stay in touch. Cool. It's going to be great. And thank you for joining us on the show today.
You're welcome, man. This was good. I appreciate it. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, they can reach me at growth99.co.
Thanks for listening to Get a Word In, brought to you by Edgewise.media, a podcast-first marketing content agency. To learn more about Edgewise, visit www.edgewise.media. I'm your host, Adam Walker. To connect with me, check out my blog at adamjwalker.com. Thanks for listening, and make sure to subscribe now so you don't miss our next great conversation about content marketing.